Today is Monday, October 9th, week 5 NFL edition of the Monday Morning Post. I'm the producer and host, Ryan Sampson, joined by my co-host, Dexter Henry. And we're joined today by New York Post sports columnist, Mark Cannizzaro. Mark, how you doing? Dexter, also good morning, man.
Doing great, guys.
Yeah, doing great. Mark, good to see you, as always.
Nice to see you, Dex. Nice studio.
Yeah. I try. I try.
Well, we really appreciate you, Mark, giving us some time to talk about your takeaways from Sunday's action. But we want to start off with Sunday night's game. It was a game that a lot of people around the NFL and fans were looking forward to. 49ers Cowboys classic. It's a great helmet matchup game. And obviously, there's two good teams. Like a lot of people thought going into this matchup, this was going to be a great game between the Cowboys and 49ers. But what we got, Mark, instead was a 42-10 blowout. Dak Prescott did not look good, threw a couple interceptions. The 49ers, Brock Purdy looked accurate, delivered the ball downfield well to all of his receivers. George Kittle, 3 touchdowns. But, Mark, when you're looking at this game and the results that we saw, and I'll throw this question to you too, Dexter, is this more about the Cowboys? Because everyone thought the Cowboys were that elite team this year, and they were going to take that step with how impressive they looked in the beginning of the year. Or is this more about the 49ers look like that team of destiny, and they're just so much better than everyone else from top to bottom? Their roster is elite.
I would probably go 75% Cowboys, 25%. 75% 49ers, 25% Cowboys. I think what you saw last night was a team that's clearly destined for the NFC Championship game in the 49ers. I mean, there's just the weapons they have really on both sides of the ball. I mean, watching Fred Warner play is awesome. But offensively, what Brock Purdy's doing with that skill position set around him, with Kittle and Debo and obviously McCaffrey, last night just showed how much better San Francisco is than Dallas. Not necessarily how bad Dallas may be. What's interesting out of that game, Dex, I would throw this to you a little bit, because if you read into this game or read some of the stuff that was entering this game, Dak Prescott put a lot of emphasis into this game. I mean, he basically, called this thing out as a measuring stick. He was vocal about him still hurting and thinking about last year's playoff game where they were knocked out by the Niners, and that still bothered him. And this was a chance to kind of show that they're on that 49er level. And that was a significant smack in the face on Sunday night. I read some of his quotes afterwards saying, trying to make it like these teams are a little bit more even than the final score showed. No, that's not the case at all. That final score was exactly what that game was. The 49ers did whatever they wanted to do in that game.
Yeah, I like your percentages and what you said there, Mark, in terms of 75-25. I think you can even go higher with it, right? Like it might be 90% about the 49ers and 10% about the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys, they always are going to get a lot of attention because they're America's team, right? And sometimes I've defended Dak and said there's been unfair pressure put on him because of that. But there's no defending this, okay? You're right, Mark. He talked about this game all week. He talked about how it was a measuring stick. I liked that he was talking about that. But it's one thing to talk. It's another thing to then go out and either execute or not execute. And he didn't execute. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions yesterday. Not good at all. I think you're completely right. The Niners, you can laud their defense, and people have all this time. But as Ryan just said, the weapons that they have at the skill position. Brock Purdy, who I've been doubting.
Everybody.
How can you doubt him anymore at this point, right?
Dude's 10-0 as a starter. He hasn't lost as a starter yet.
He hasn't lost as a starter, right? This Dallas defense is supposed to be good. They didn't look that good last night. They're supposed to be good.
Purdy. They didn't touch Purdy yesterday.
They didn't look like the team that beat the Giants 40-0 on opening night. I can tell you that because I was at that game.
Right.
I agree. I actually like the way Dak handled the lead up to this game, because I hate it when players try to downplay stuff. And he absolutely called it out as a measuring stick for them. What I didn't like was the backpedal post game. Last night, trying to make it out like, well, that wasn't as bad as it looked, but it really was as bad as it looked. They did whatever they wanted against Dallas. The Niners did. So, I think that's, all athletes are trying to, they try to reconcile after games or try to find reasons or try to look at, I'm losing the word I'm looking for, but,
Dak said it was
they're trying to justify,
right.
Right. And
right. So
bottom line was that was just a domination.
It was. And Dak said it was a humbling loss. He thought it was more. And what's interesting is he compared it to the loss to the Cardinals, where he said, I thought that was a humbling loss for us and our team, that we needed that type of loss to knock us down a peg about our confidence and how we are. But then last night you realized you just got outclassed by a much better football team. And for me, the Cowboys' vaunted defense that's supposed to be the leader of this entire, that's supposed to help this team win it all. I mean, you talk about Brock Purdy sacked once the entire game, but he went off for 252 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. McCaffrey added a touchdown on the ground. I mean, they had, like you said, their way with them in any way possible. They were able to do what they wanted on the offensive side, and Dak wasn't able to get anything going. I think I agree with both of you. It's about the 49ers, how great they are. And Brock Purdy has proven again and again and again. You can doubt him. He's the real deal. The kid is the real deal. Last pick in the draft, and he just continues to win football games, and he knows how to get the ball into his playmakers' hands in the right way.
Ryan, before I was out west with the Giants when they played the Niners, when they won that Arizona San Francisco swing, and a lot of the Giant people speaking about Brock prior to that game, their coaches and whatnot, talked about how much of a good point guard he is, and you just kind of referenced that a little bit. He really has done. He doesn't try to do too much. He distributes the ball to the playmakers like a proper point guard. And I thought that was a great analogy. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, most quarterbacks are supposed to be good point guards, but this is a guy that doesn't look like he does things. He's not slinging the ball all over the place like Brett Favre used to do or whatever, just throwing something out, or he's not some masterful deep ball guy. When he's kind of one of those, I'm a golf guy. He's one of those guys that somehow at the end of the round has always shot a really, really freaking low score. And you're like, how did he just do that? Right.
Right.
And
he's not the farthest driver. He's not the best chipper.
Yeah, exactly. He's not flashy. He's not like the most dangerous guy, with his feet, although he does a good job. He has some elusiveness, but yeah, he is that guy that you just kind of like, if you finish the game and you're like, what happened? Why did that guy just have these great numbers? But he just, he has great talent around him. That's number one. And, he doesn't make mistakes, which is, that's not number one, as we know around these parts, with Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson, half the time the Jets and Giants are giving games away with the mistakes their quarterbacks are making.
Yeah, he doesn't make mistakes at all. You're right about that. I think I'm starting to wonder now, Mark and Ryan, when is he going to get tested, right? Like, we haven't really seen him tested yet. Is it when they face the Eagles? Is it in the NFC Championship game? When is he going to get tested? I thought Dallas would test him more. I think that's the disappointing thing for me here with Dallas in this game, is the fact that, as Ryan said, 1 sack, they didn't touch him. Dallas's defense, you're supposed to be this vaunted defense, and you didn't show up really against the Niners. And it just might be, as Ryan's saying, the Niners are that good. They do whatever they want. Like, they are clearly a class above everybody right now.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to
definitely
see.
in NFC.
I am fascinated at some point, they're going to run up against Philly. I don't believe they play each other in the regular season. I might be wrong on that. Maybe they do, but without the schedules in front of me. But I mean, Philly and San Francisco clearly are the class of the NFC.
Play Philly.
They do play Philly because
December 3rd.
That's going to be a great matchup to look forward to. They're the two teams. I mean, Philly's just kind of quietly going about its business, and undefeated, and not doing anything in a real flashy way. They're just winning games. And the Niners, obviously, they're coming off the nationally televised game, so we're all drooling over them, right? But love to see how those two match up against each other when they do see each other in December.
Yeah, and you guys bring up a great point. Brock Purdy being tested. He left that NFC Championship game obviously getting hurt and having to have Tommy John surgery from his elbow. So you really didn't get to see him against that Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl last year. But let's go to our next topic here, guys. Speaking of a blowout loss, the New England Patriots suffered another blowout loss, 34-0, this time to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints coming off a tough loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You didn't know how they were going to bounce back. Obviously, the quarterback had the shoulder injury. Derek Carr seemed like he was fighting it a little bit last week, but Saints were ho-hum, no problem. And the Patriots, again, look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. Mark, Dex, I've never seen a New England team quite like this that's just losing week after week in fashions like this.
Well, these are the two worst losses in Belichick's career as a head coach, back-to-back weeks, and it's weird to look at him and see how kind of lost he is, and the team is, and if we're going to get to percentages, I don't know how good New Orleans is at the end of the day. I think they're an okay team. I figure they're going to probably win that division, the NFC South, pretty easily. But the Buccaneers, which we'll get into in a couple of minutes, have, kind of been a pretty good surprise. But if we're going to go to those percentages, I'm thinking this game was 90% New England, 10% New Orleans. I don't know that New Orleans is 34 nothing good.
Yeah.
But New England right now looks like 34-0 bad. It looks like the quarterback has lost all of his confidence. It doesn't look like Belichick has a lot of confidence in him. He's been pulled for the last 2 weeks in a row in both games. And there is a serious crisis up there. And I hate to, I know it's low hanging fruit, but when Brady left, it was always, well, was it Brady or Belichick? Well, we kind of got that answer, when Brady A, won a Super Bowl, and B, still prospered to some degree right to the day of his retirement. And Belichick has not done anything since Brady left. And Belichick also is important to note here, is not just the head coach. He's the de facto general manager. So he's bringing in the talent too. So you can't say, like if you're going to look at the Giants and blame, Joe Shane for last year's draft and try to give Dayball a blow or a break. You can't do that in New England. Belichick controls everything. So everything falls on him. And, to his credit, Bill, is accountable. He says it's on me. But, man, they just look they look not like the worst team in the division. They look like the worst team in the conference right now.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy to say that. I think that, listen, I think the question's been answered about Brady and Belichick. And when I say that, that doesn't mean that he's not a good coach, not a Hall of Fame coach. Obviously,
Absolutely.
you need talent to win. Yesterday, I was in a place eating some lunch, and a Patriots fan came up to me, was talking to me about that. He was asking me, he said, "Hey, what do you think is going on here? Is it Belichick's time to leave? Does he need to move? Has the game passed him by?" No, I don't necessarily think that, right? He just doesn't have the talent. And like Mark said, he's got to be accountable for that. The wide receiver, the skill position players, they're not there. It also, I think when you look at this Patriots team, Ryan and Mark, this should also make you think about how good Brady was, right? How he was able to elevate guys in the way that we talk about now with Patrick Mahomes. Go ahead, Mark. I see you want to say something there. Yeah.
No, I wasn't trying to interrupt you. What you just said nailed it. Tom Brady made everybody around him better, and the Patriots don't have their skill position players are pretty much the same as they've been all along, except for the Randy Moss era and maybe Wes Welker. But they got away with that because Brady made those guys into really good receivers. Mac Jones can't do that. Mac Jones needs them to make him a better quarterback than he is, and so they've gotten away with I don't want to say the sale rack or bargain basement skill position players in the past with Brady, because exactly what you just said, Dex, Brady made them better. And I'm not trying to, sit up here and make this whole show about deifying Brady, but I mean, and you listen, I think Belichick has a brilliant mind. He's a brilliant football mind,
Absolutely.
not just a defensive mind. But he has gotten himself in a position. The biggest knock on him has always been him as a talent evaluator, as a GM. And now that seems to be biting him in the ass right now. And that's really come to fruition now. And he doesn't have Brady to bail him out.
No,
he doesn't.
And we need to realize that you just brought this up, Mark, with Brock Purdy, right? Like how he's able to, I hate even using this label as a game manager, but he doesn't make mistakes. And there's a difference between that and the guys like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, who we're watching right now, who can do that, who can elevate guys. There are very few of those guys. They don't come along that often. And it's a huge luxury as a team when you have that. And I think the Patriots are finding it out right now. Mark, I don't think you're far off on this. Ryan, I don't think you'll say this either. They might be the worst team in the conference. For sure. They definitely might be the worst team in the conference.
Oh, I think they are. Which makes the Jets' loss to them even worse. But my thing with the whole Patriots scenario, the skill position is one thing. You drafted Mac Jones in the first round. Last year, what you did as Bill Belichick, the GM, de facto GM, president of this team, you took a defensive-minded coach who got fired as a head coach and made him the offensive coordinator. And then you took the fired head coach from the Giants and made him the quarterback coach who had never had any offensive experience before. It's irresponsible, like, to think that you were, and it's arrogant, if we're being real, of Bill Belichick to think that he could take those two coaches and Matt Patricia and Joe Judge.
Joe Judge. Yeah.
And to say to those guys, you guys are going to now run the offense with Mac Jones, my first round quarterback. I think they ruined him. I think they absolutely ruined him. And I think they also ruined this entire offense because that didn't make sense.
He had a pretty good rookie year. I mean, he was probably
Josh
the best
McDaniels.
crop of the rookies, right?
With Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
A proven offensive coordinator, a guy who's known as a good offensive mind, who Brady has backed before and said, I love working with Josh. Josh is a great offensive mind. But you were irresponsibly running this offense as Bill Belichick because you thought that you could have a Super Bowl caliber defense with, like you said, guys, an offense that doesn't have the greatest weapons, but a quarterback that could just get the ball to his playmakers' hands and not make mistakes. I think that was arrogant on Belichick's part, and he's missed on a lot of first-round picks. Let's be real. He is not drafted well. This year's first-round pick, Christian Gonzalez, looked like the real deal up until he got hurt this past week. But I just think that this team, it's been poorly constructed. It's coming around now. And what's going to drive me nuts and a lot of New York fans, I think that the Patriots are going to end up with a top 5 draft pick this year in a quarterback-heavy draft where there's some really talented quarterbacks, and we're going to see Bill Belichick with a Drake May, possibly even a Caleb Williams, depending on how the rest of the season goes. And we're all going to be like, are you serious? We're really
the Giants might beat them too with the way things are going right now, Ryan. So we'll see,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So I want to talk about these two New York teams, obviously, next, Mark. So let's start with the Denver game. Obviously, the Jets went out to Denver. Big win for them, 31-21 over the Broncos. But I want to talk about the Denver side of things here, Mark. This is another loss for Sean Payton in his first year in Denver. Obviously, he was traded for with a first-round pick in acquiring him, 4 first-round picks for Russell Wilson a couple of years back, and a nice, shiny new contract. Mark, what's going on in Denver? Why is it not working with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson right now?
Well, you used the word arrogance a minute ago with reference to what was going on in New England, and I think that there's been an arrogance level on the part of Sean Payton, who I've always liked, where I just really feel like he thought he was going to be able to step out of the TV booth after a little time away and snap his fingers, but he doesn't have Drew Brees, and what he has is a washed up Russell Wilson. I mean, it's pretty clear every week you watch him. You keep waiting to see the old Russell Wilson, and it's just not there. It wasn't, and it's no accident that Seattle couldn't wait to get rid of him. So that's you have a guy and a head coach who thought he can just kind of come right in and clean the mess up, and his arrogant comments about the stunning really comments that he made about Hackett, which the Jets got the last laugh on yesterday, obviously, totally breaking the code on the coaching code. I mean, just no reason for that, for him to even bring it up. And really, I think he knew as this game got closer, that was really going to slap him in the head, which it did at the end of the day yesterday. But I think you have that, the arrogance on that level, and you have a quarterback that's just not the same as he was, and they're stuck with him, with that contract. And I mean, boy, it's stunning how ugly it's gotten out there, because it doesn't seem like that long ago that I was going out and covering playoff games out in Denver, when Manning was there and whatnot. But the crazy irony about Denver has been the absolute lack of being able to find a quarterback when John Elway was in charge, right? When John Elway, the guy ran through quarterbacks like we run through, dish rags in a kitchen at a restaurant. And he could never find a quarterback, and they still don't have one. So it's coach and quarterback over there right now. I mean, to oversimplify it, and it's mostly quarterback, because I think Sean Payton can coach, but he can't coach without a quarterback. And you could see how pissed off he was, at Wilson, on that Quincy Williams strip sack there. I mean, he was livid, and I just, you just see the frustration growing between coach and quarterback, and that is going to be something to watch as the season progresses here.
I think that's definitely something to watch. And when I saw that exchange, Mark, I was looking at Russell Wilson looked like he did not care. When somebody's yelling at you and you do not care, that's not a good look at all whatsoever. And it makes you wonder where that relationship is. Is it really strained? And it's so early on. We're only talking about 5 games into this in terms of the regular season. You just wonder where things are going there. It doesn't look good. They can't stop the run in Denver. Breece Hall did what I expected him to do yesterday, which was run all over them with more carries. They couldn't stop any, even when they got close. And listen, the Jets didn't play a great game there, but you never felt like
Jets kept
Denver
them
was
in
going to win that game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Jets kept them in that game. I mean, Zach Wilson's lack of awareness at the end of the first half was inexcusable. That was tossing away 3 points. The pass attempt to Garrett Wilson at the end was put in the only place that it couldn't have been put, which was on the inside, of the receiver. That's those 2 plays that potentially could have cost the Jets the game, but fortunately for them, Denver's so inept they couldn't take advantage. But getting back to the Russell Wilson thing, guys, I mean, you heard all the reports, before Sean Payton got in there about how Wilson had his own office in the building and all kinds of weird stuff like that, kind of egocentric. And then you heard Wilson say he wants to be coached hard. Well, that all sounds good until you are coached hard and you're screwing up. And that, what you just mentioned, Dex, Russell Wilson looked like he wanted no part of that lashing, that tongue lashing that he was getting from. I feel like he was heading right to his ATM machine to check his balance or something, in his bank account, and say, I got mine, So, and I'm not saying he's that kind of guy. I don't know Russell Wilson personally, but man, it's not looked good for a long time now, and that contract looks. It's hard for that contract to look bad. It would look worse than Danny Dimes' contract at the moment at $40 million a year, but at least the Giants get out of that.
Looking at Russell Wilson's contract, because we're talking about Russell Wilson, he signed a 5-year, $242 million deal with the Broncos with a $50 million signing bonus with 161 guaranteed. That was in 2020. In 2023, this year, he has a dead cap hit of $107 million. Next year's dead cap hit, $85 million, and the year after that, $49 million, and then they can get out of the contract after that, where he'll be age 38. So you're stuck with him for 2 more years.
By then, if the NFL has relegation like the Premier League, then they might not be in the NFL anymore.
That would be fantastic. There, listen, I said this to Ryan. I think I said this to you after week 2 when we did the show. Trust good organizations when they move on from people. And Seattle's a good organization. They've been well run under Pete Carroll for most years. When they said we're moving on from you and we're going to try this out with Geno Smith, that should have been a sign to all of us to say, maybe they know what they're doing here. Maybe Russell Wilson. And listen, I like Russell Wilson. I loved what he did in Seattle. Great defense. I think he played well in Pete Carroll's scheme offensively. But he looks cooked, man. And I hate saying that about players. I hate when you see that, so early for him. He just doesn't look good. He just doesn't look like he has it. The decision making that was really good with him before just doesn't seem to be there.
So. And he doesn't hurt you with his legs anymore. Very rarely. Nope. And that used to be his elusiveness. Used to be his superpower, and that's just no longer anymore. It's funny. You make a good point about the good organizations, Dex. And as soon as you said that, you know what that reminded me of? Reminded me of when the Steelers, who are as well run as anybody and almost never have a losing season, could not wait to part ways with Santonio Holmes to the Jets. Now, Holmes worked out well 1 year with the Jets, and then his true character showed as soon as they gave him his contract. And he was standing on that hotel bed half naked with a bottle of Cristal in his hands celebrating. And it never worked out after that again. And you always wondered, geez, how in the world could the Pittsburgh have just let him go for a 5th-round draft pick? Well, that's why, because the guy's a freaking idiot. That's why.
Pittsburgh usually gets it right when they get rid of these guys, too. That's another organization that's a great one to bring up. And it's funny. I remember my first time working for the Post, and we did stuff when Santonio Holmes came to the Jets. And I think it was you and Costello were both talking about how, all right, well, let's see how it is. Is he going to be on his best behavior? And you're right, Mark. Lasted 1 year. The next year, it was like, oh, okay, this is why this happened.
It lasted until he got his money. As soon as he got his money, that was it. Right? That was it. The next thing you know, he's getting kicked out of huddles in crunch time, and down in Miami because he's
down in Miami.
Remember complaining, So yeah. Anyway, that was off the beaten path a little bit, but that was the first thing I thought of when you mentioned that. It's a very good point.
Sorry, Ryan. We didn't mean to bring up bad Jets memory. Sorry.
No, listen, I appreciate all the Jets talk we can get on this, but
Ryan's used to being in therapy anyway.
Yes, I am.
This is therapy for Ryan.
Yes, I am. This is very cathartic for me. Speaking of Miami, the Dolphins destroyed the New York Giants yesterday, 31-16. They put up 540 yards of offense, both through the air and on the ground. Mark, Dex, Dolphins, 4-1. The Bills lost yesterday in a surprise in London to the Jaguars. Dolphins, everyone's talking about their offense. Again, it just looks so good on the ground. Like this rookie, Devon Achane, goes over 151 yards and a touchdown. He was arguably the fastest player on the field, and then Tyreek Hill had to try one up him, and he goes for a long touchdown as well. So there's so much speed to this offense. When you're looking at the Dolphins, could they be the best team in the AFC East right now?
Oh, I think they clearly are. I mean, I know Buffalo took care of them last week, and I'm not a non-believer in the Bills. I don't know. They looked like they were sleepwalking offensively yesterday in London. They looked like a team that had just arrived in London, and Jacksonville looked like a team that was on London time for 2 weeks or 10 days, and so I'm kind of attributing that to that, but we'll see. I still think, I'm a huge believer in Josh Allen. I really am. Although Josh Allen still turns the ball over a little bit too much without Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll curbed that, and he's, even last year he was back to that, back to too many turnovers. But getting to Miami, and if we're looking at Giants Miami yesterday in percentages, I think we kind of knew who the Giants were when they went to Miami. I think yesterday was 85% how good the Dolphins are, and only 15% about how bad the Giants are. The Giants are, listen, they went in there. This is zero excuses, just facts, and it's not the reason they lost the game. But you don't have your best two players on offense, which is your left tackle and your one playmaker at running back. Not to mention the rest of the line is completely disheveled and in and out with practice squad dudes and stuff. But Miami just looks. First of all, I love their coach. I as a reporter, I would love to be sitting in on his press conferences every day, because the guy he's just kind of goofy and wacky and brilliant all at the same time. It's all balled into one, and I just like the way he operates. I think Tua. It's remarkable where he is right now, because quite frankly, both of you guys by the end of last year, we weren't sure the guy was going to play again with all the concussions he had, right?
Yeah.
And now Miami's doing a good enough job where nobody's getting a freaking hand on him. So that's been good, and he doesn't run too much. He seems to be, pretty democratic the way he's using his legs. And obviously when you have that kind of talent, this running back, I think this guy's, I want to say, I saw a stat yesterday. I think he's like he's gaining like 16 yards a touch or something like that.
It's insane.
I mean, it's insane, and the
he's
Dolphins
averaging 12 a carry right now.
Oh yeah,
12 yards a carry.
And the Dolphins yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, I think averaged 9.5 yards per offensive play. That's basically a first down every offensive play.
It's insane.
And I don't think the Giants defense is that disgustingly bad. It's not been performing as well as it should, obviously. And I'm a little disappointed with the front seven. Dexter got his money. Leonard's had his money. I haven't seen either of those guys make an impact play since the regular season began. Thibodeau is kind of, very hot and cold. We made a couple plays yesterday. I know we made a play last week, but you just need more consistency out of him. But yeah, that yesterday to me was just about how scary good the Dolphins are, rather than how bad the Giants are, because I think we know the Giants scuffle right now. I mean, health-wise and whatnot is an issue for them.
Yeah, I'm love that percentage, Mark. I'm with you on that. 85-15 seems about right in terms of how good we learned the Dolphins are. Not we learned, I think we know, but I think it's just further solidifying it. Hearing this talk makes me think, man, I'd love to see the Dolphins play the Niners. I kind of want to see that, what that game would look like, right? The Dolphins are good. I think they can definitely win the AFC East. I'm intrigued to see when they play Buffalo the second time down in Miami, what that looks like. What did they learn from that first matchup? How do they get better? I think they're a fantastic team. The Giants, I had one of my producers at work last week say they might be the worst team in football. He said he thinks they could be worse than the Bears. And look, that's not crazy to say right now. Okay. They looked at it's between the Bears, the Patriots, and the Giants. Pick one of those teams. The Giants' offensive line looks terrible. It's in shambles, obviously, with all the injuries. And now we're waiting to see what happens with Daniel Jones, obviously, in his neck. So I think the Dolphins are good though. They're a fun team to watch. The creativity on offense, the speed, and it shows you in the NFL now. You've got to be able to put up some points. Okay, you have to be able to score in the NFL. I don't think you can just rely on your defense. Defense has to be good. You have to have that balance like San Francisco has. I think that's what makes them so great.
Yeah.
Even look at Kansas City this year. Defensively, they're better, but they still can put up points, right? They still can put up 27 yesterday when they need to. So the offense for the Dolphins, man, scary good.
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
scary good.
if you look at yesterday's game, the Giants, which went into that game 4 games into the season, almost a quarter of the way into the season, had not forced a turnover on defense. They forced 3 of them yesterday and scored on one of them. When you score a defensive touchdown, the statistics skew so, I mean, it is unbelievable. If you do this, I don't have it in front of me, and the stats on a team that wins a turnover battle, has 3 turnovers and scores a defensive touchdown off a turnover, that team wins like 96% of the time or something crazy like that. And yet the Giants got smoked. They got boat raced anyway, even with that, even with doing that on defense. So that's a pretty good indicator about how powerful that offense is of Miami's.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, like you brought up, Dexter, this is an interesting point about Daniel Jones. Sacked 6 times, obviously a bad offensive line. Are we just blaming this completely on the offensive line? Are we going to start giving a little bit more pay attention to this offense? Daniel Jones not performing well. Obviously, you don't have Saquon Barkley, but it's not produced much, if we're being honest. And to Mark's point, you scored your first half points of the season through a pick 6. You haven't scored any offensive points, touchdowns wise, in the first half this entire season during games. It just doesn't, like, it's not working right now.
Right, and they haven't scored an offensive touchdown in 3 of the 5 games, right? So far, so that's how bad. I think you have to start looking at. To the question, Ryan, do the Giants have enough playmakers outside of Saquon Barkley? I think the answer for me is no. Right, when Saquon's not there, who do they have that you trust that can really make a play and break this game open? Darren Waller, he's getting targeted all the time, but teams are going to try to take that away. He's been subpar. I think that's probably fair to put for him. He's had a couple catches yesterday. He also had some bad drops. So this team just doesn't feel like they have enough playmakers. And so when you look at their offense juxtaposed to Miami's offense, it's 2 different worlds, guys, in terms of offensive talent, in terms of creativity. You're just not seeing that. And I think that the offensive line obviously is a huge problem. Jones has no time to throw. You're playing backups who haven't faced NFL defensive players with this speed and strength. So that's a problem. But I also just think there's not enough playmakers. And I'm wondering now as we go further into this, I was thinking about this last night, is this the best thing for this Giants organization to have a season where they're not good? Mark talked about they could be competing for the number 1 pick, could be Caleb Williams, which who knows if they'll take it, would they trade the pick? There's a whole bunch of stuff and a long way for us to get there, but maybe this is the best thing for this organization to reset because there are so many holes. So I just wonder if it's a good time for them to reset with a bad season.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think that Brian Daboll or Joe Shane or anybody in that organization expected to make the playoffs last year. I mean, they a lot of stuff went right for them. They won a lot of close games. And it was just kind of one of those years. And, unfortunately, the Giant fan doesn't want to hear that, like, oh, we may take a step back. Now, these are pretty large steps back that they've taken. We knew this was going to be a difficult start to the season. Their early season schedule was killer. You had the 2 games on the West Coast in 4 days. You have 7 out of the first 10 games are on the road that they're in the midst of right now. So and you're playing obviously a more difficult schedule because you had a good year last year. You throw all that stuff in, you knew they were going to struggle a little bit this year. I just think the struggle has been much deeper than everybody thought it was going to be. I listen to, we all listen to sports radio. Dex, you're doing updates on sports radio. You're listening to it by proxy.
Yep.
But we all listen to it. And I just, when I listen to the Giant fan talking about whether Brian Daboll's job is in jeopardy, a year and 5 games into it, I mean, you just relax, to borrow from Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you can't keep. The Jets have been doing this for years. They changed coaches and GMs for, not this GM regime, obviously with Joe Douglas, but they just kept changing and changing and changing, and nothing ever changes. Brian Daboll, I've known for a long time. The guy is a damn good head coach. If you watched him operate, he has not wavered. He didn't waver from last year when they were having success, and he hasn't wavered this year. He stays the course, and that's what the Giants have to do. Joe Shane built it was part of building a pretty good program up in Buffalo. I get it. They nailed the quarterback, which is, the biggest thing you got to do. And it's part of the issue with the Giants right now. The Giants were kind of backed into a corner. They had to give Daniel Jones that money, because what was the alternative? You're really starting over again if you're not going to, and listen, he had a pretty good year last year. It wasn't a great year, 15 touchdown passes. You can't win in this league doing that. But that said, I thought he was going to take a lot of steps this year, and it hasn't happened. But I think my greater point here is you got to stay the course. I know it looks ugly right now. I know the Giant fan is pissed off, and every right to be. But you have to be realistic here. This is not a coaching issue right now. This is a personnel issue. And it's a personnel issue in large part because they don't have enough yet, because they're still in the midst of the rebuild. And because of the good personnel they do have has been hurt. So again, not excuses, just facts. But you just can't keep changing coaches and GMs every 2 years. It's not going to work. Let's put it this way. Brian Daboll is not Ben McAdoo, and he's not Joe Judge. Okay. And I like Joe Judge. I like both guys. But I think Daboll is I just see him as a much more solid answer here, and they need to stay the course. Brian Daboll is not going to lose that locker room. Trust me, he will not. Joe Judge did lose the locker room.
Yeah, it's
I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. You can't change course right now, obviously. It doesn't get any easier for the Giants and the Giants fans. They're going up in Buffalo Sunday Night Football to face Brian Daboll's former team in the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, and they're coming off a tough loss to Bills, so how they're going to want to respond. Doesn't get any easier for them. Mark, let's close all this up. I want to ask you straight up. We're 5 weeks into the season. Can you give me a couple of surprise teams that are performing a lot better than you thought they were this year?
Well, it's funny. The Lions, Ryan, were everybody's sexy pick to be the team that makes the leap forward. Kind of like Jacksonville was the last couple of years, with Trevor Lawrence and stuff. And they played pretty well last year. But so I kind of went in like, I was on a wait and see with Detroit, right? Jared Goff, solid quarterback, is he? But and obviously the coach over there is, it's just a blast to watch, listen to. Was that a gimmick? No, you know what? It's not a gimmick. This guy has done a really nice job of building that place up and building his players' morale up, and he's got those guys jacked every Sunday.
Yes,
and they've got some talent there now, and they're playing really well. So I think that is a really fun, if you want to use the word surprise team, even though I know that was kind of it was a lot of people's team, to maybe take a step forward this year. The other one for me is Tampa Bay. I thought Tampa Bay was dead. I thought poor Todd Bowles, now he doesn't have a quarterback again. Well, Baker Mayfield maybe has found a home over there. I know they're just 4 games in. They had to bye this past week, but they play this week. They're in first place in that division, and Baker's played pretty damn well. And I like to see that. I think that's a fun thing to see when you see teams like that. I really thought Tampa Bay, once Brady left, was going to be spiraling for a while, and that's not the case. And listen, let's credit Todd Bowles too. I think he's a pretty good coach. I don't think he got some of the due he probably should have gotten when he was with the Jets, even partially because he's just not a dynamic personality. But so those are my two. And I would throw in, Houston, obviously, with Stroud. I didn't think Stroud was the best out of those 2 quarterbacks. I thought, I thought, the kid in Carolina was going to be the one that's going to take the steps. And here C.J. Stroud is, like putting up some record numbers for rookie quarterback right now. So those are my 3 kind of surprises, so far.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. CJ Stroud, what he's doing, the most passes to start a career without throwing an interception. Everyone keeps saying it feels like a jinx, but it's true. He set the record. It's pretty crazy that he's done that already. And he does look like the part. The one thing I want to take from everything you said right there and about the Lions, remember this name, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator there in Detroit. That guy is going to be a head coach candidate this year, and I think he's going to be a great head coach because that offense he runs is awesome. It is fun. You saw that other teams are stealing their plays now. All of a sudden, it's fun in Detroit. It's fun to be a Lions fan again, and it's been a long time since that. I think a lot of Lions fans can say that.
He's got two good coordinators there, and Johnson was he had some eyes on him last year, but Aaron Glenn on the other side of the ball is a really I covered his entire career as a Jet, and super smart guy, and just one of Parcells' favorites because of that, because he was really good and because he was really smart, and he's quietly done a really, really good job over there as well. They're getting a little bit more accolades offensively, but he had some head coaching interviews this past offseason as well, and I expect that to happen again, come this offseason. But yeah, they got two good coordinators over there. It's gonna be fun to watch that team.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's gonna be fun. I like Detroit. They're really fun to watch, like Ryan said. I think they're fun to watch, and I think that we saw them making the leap last year towards the end of the regular season. It's nice to see what Dan Campbell's done with that group, taking them again this season. Yeah, I think they're going to win that division. I think they're going to win it pretty easily. I picked them to win the division before the year. I think they look good. I think they're the class of division. It feels weird to be saying this, guys. We're talking about Detroit. It feels weird to be saying this, but they're fun. How good can they be? I think for them, it's just got to be about development throughout the season. Do I have to see them beating a San Francisco or Philadelphia? No, but if they can host a home playoff game, which will be fantastic for that city, if they can win that game, that's huge. That's huge for that organization going forward, and the confidence that they have. They have a lot of good skill players. They have a solid quarterback in Jared Goff. Not great, but solid. He's not going to mess it up. And I think that helps. I'm going to add, a surprise team I want to add. Their record isn't great, but I just like how they play. That's the Arizona Cardinals. They play tough, man. Like, I know they blew it to the Giants. They honestly probably should be 2-3 instead of 1-4. But I watched that team, and they're well coached. They're prepared. They're playing tough right now, and so I like what's going on there in Arizona. They just have a decision to make about what they're going to do at quarterback with Kyler Murray. But that team's playing tough. Like, sometimes you look at the record, but that team comes to compete every week, and I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's a team that everybody thought was tanking. To get that quarterback, right? And the Giants went out there and they were all over the Giants in the first half of that game, and should never have lost that game. You're right, Dexter. They should, you don't lose a lead like that. Yeah. But they certainly didn't. Having seen them, and I tell you, that quarterback now, you talk about manager, right? He's kind of, he's keeping them afloat. He's really. I kind of mocked it going in, not disrespectfully, but I did write that there's no way the Giants should lose to this guy. He started 6 games in his career leading up to that game. And, he's done a really nice job over there. He's managed that place, and it does not look like a team that's tanking to me. But then again, when you say tank, players and coaches, they don't tank. No. Tanking comes from an organizational standpoint when you're just dumping players. You're not gonna find any player on a football field on a Sunday or whatever, Sunday, Monday. Now we're on Thursday nights and Friday nights, whatever. Every night but Tuesday, right? But but you're not gonna find any player on a game day that is tanking, because quite frankly, that's the easiest way to get hurt too. So and listen, coaches are all coaching for their. I remember back. I know we're rambling, and I'll shut this down, but. When Doug Marrone, who I know very well, covered with the Jets, and he did a good job up in Buffalo. When he was in Jacksonville, they tanked to get Trevor Lawrence, and obviously he was coaching to try to win every game, and his players are trying to win every game. But they stripped him of all the talent they had, and of course he ended up getting fired, for his efforts, But although I do think Doug Peterson's a really damn good head coach, and nobody gives a lot of credit to.
Well, don't forget the Urban Meyer experiment the year before with Doug Peterson.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah. So I think that's a good one. Going back to Arizona, Dex, I agree with you. I think a lot of people expected Arizona to go 0 for this year, and you're right that they probably should have 2 wins now.
Yeah, they play tough as well. It's good coaching. I think it's interesting. Excuse me, to see what their culture is going to be like going forward, because they seem like there's something good in place in the way the guys play, and they're tough. So we'll see. That'll be good.
Yeah, the most mocked coach in the offseason with his most viral video. Shots, fires, pew, 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 talking to his players. Awkward dude, but you know what? Like you guys said, he has him competing. And Mark's 2 surprise teams, the Lions and Buccaneers. Guess what? They play this week, week 6, this Sunday. at
That's right.
425 in Tampa Bay. That should be a fun matchup to watch. Mark, thank you so much for breaking down all of the week 5 action with us, man. We really appreciate you just giving us some time and giving us all your thoughts and insights on the NFL action, man.
Good talking to you guys.
Thanks, Mark.
That was Mark Cannizzaro, our New York Post sports columnist. Mark is great. If you want to read a lot of his content, please go to the New York Post website. He's always writing great columns, and he's been covering the NFL for a long time, and we appreciate all the time he gave us. Dex, I want to talk about this Steelers-Ravens game with you because I know how much you feel about this Pittsburgh team, the way they're offensively constructed, and Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, that guy is enemy number 1 in Pittsburgh right there. But they come back and win this game. They were down 10-0, 10-3, and like, can you just tell me about this Steelers win and how they were able to pull this one out in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, man. Listen, first of all, you got to credit the defense. I also don't want to go crazy on this because Baltimore made a lot of mistakes in this game. All right. And when you let teams hang around, when you let division rivals hang around, where the games have been crazy. Steelers, Ravens, always, they're close, they're low scoring, something crazy always happens, right? Feels like that way, Ryan. I think that's also part of the reason we saw, and I'll get to this play late, where Harbaugh decides to go for the 4th down instead of kicking the field goal. I think that was in the back of his mind. He'll never come out and say that, but I think it was in the back of his mind. It backfires, right? Steelers defense keeps him in these games. If you're a Steelers fan, this is the only thing I'm going to say about this game. This is a win that's going to make you feel good because it was the Ravens. You go to 2-0 in the division. It makes you, the vibes are good there. But the problems are still there, Steelers fans on offense. The problems are still there. And I will say this again. I don't think it's Kenny Pickett. I think it's more Matt Canada. I think he's holding the team back. I think the offensive play calling has not been good. After this game, I was on the phone with a couple people who are Steelers fans. Shout out to my friends Aaron and Yvette. And they were complaining about the play calling, continuously going to Jaylen Warren over and over again. What happens on the drive where the Steelers end up kicking a field goal to cut it to 10-8 when it was 10-5, they don't get a touchdown. The play calling was terrible on that drive. Now, the final drive, they let things go. Kenny Pickett gets a nice throw to George Pickens, and him and Pickens and Pickett, that combination, they were hooking up all day. What did Pickens had? He caught 6 balls for
6 for 130 and a touchdown.
130 and a touchdown, right? Fantastic game for Pickens. You can see what happens when the offense, you open it up. The Steelers have skilled players.
Oh, yeah.
Pickett, I think, can be a solid quarterback. I don't think he's spectacular. I was talking to Bart Scott about this yesterday. He was telling me, oh, well, the Steelers aren't that good. He told me they got a little bit lucky. He's got his Ravens ties. So shout out to Bart. He's got the Ravens ties there. But I think that you got to credit the defense. And Willie Colon, I was having a conversation with him too yesterday. Willie Colon was saying, look, Steelers defense is fantastic. They keep them in games. If their offense just played competent, that's a game the Steelers could have won by 10 points or 2 touchdowns. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of the Ravens kind of were in their head too much, didn't make some plays. Also, Zay Flowers missed the touchdown, fell on the touchdown where he probably should have had it. There was another, I'm forgetting who else the other receiver was, where the ball hit his fingertips.
Was it Bateman?
Should have had a touchdown too. Bateman, yeah. Should have had the touchdown as well too. So listen, but this is a big win for the Steelers.
It's huge.
It's huge. They're now tied for first in the division.
Yeah.
Baltimore had a chance to be 3-0 in the division, and all the division wins would have came on the road had they won yesterday. So this is a huge win for the Steelers. I think I'm intrigued to see. They have the bye week this week, the Steelers do. But what's their offense like looking after this? Because Tomlin has talked about making changes. Something has to change. You still heard the fans at I still call it Heinz Acrisure Stadium chanting for fire Matt Canada. This does not absolve Matt Canada in any way for me. The Steelers won in spite of Matt Canada, and they still have issues, and the offense has got to be better. I think they have the players to do it. But look, the Steelers are where I thought they could be. I think you talked to me about this before, Ryan. I thought they were a 9-win team. They'll probably be out to 9-8. I think they'll be in a playoff hunt. We'll see. Bengals are starting to look better. Joe Burrow starting to look a little healthier there. I told people before I don't believe in the Browns. Still don't believe in the Browns. So, yeah, we'll see, man. But it's a good win. If you're a Steelers fan, you got to be pumped up about this one. But it really matters what happens after the bye and how this offense is looking. It's got to get better. The run game's got to be better. Pickett's fine. He just has to have diversity in the offense. That's all I've been saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of Steelers fans were down on the Steelers a little bit after that tough loss against the Texans. I mean, they didn't look good at all in that game. But to your point, the defense is just so dang good. And I think this is what makes Mike Tomlin so great. The man coaches to win games. That's what he does. And this Baltimore, they just got outcoached. I think Harbaugh got absolutely outcoached by Mike Tomlin because like you said, I think they were in their own heads thinking we'll be smart, we'll be cute, we'll go for it on fourth down. And then Lamar Jackson, he made some boneheaded mistakes, boneheaded drops by his receivers. It just didn't. Baltimore had no business losing this game if we're being real right now.
No, they didn't.
But they left the door open, and this is what happens now. You left the door open, to your point, and it's a great point. You left the door open in the AFC North because now the Steelers are 3-2, the same record as you, and the Bengals are coming. Their offense looks like it's starting to click right now. It's a slow starting team always with the Bengals. You know how Joe Burrow can go on a run. So you had a chance to actually make a good dent into this division, and now it's wide open. And this is what the Steelers do, though. They grit out these wins like they did against the Browns on Monday night, and they gritted out this one yesterday. It was another impressive game by Mike Tomlin and just winning this football game. I do want to say, though, I love Jaylen Warren. That dude is fun to watch with the ball in his hands. Too. Yeah.
Oh, I like Jaylen Warren too. I think I think he's fantastic as a pass, catching back out the backfield. He only had 3 catches yesterday. I hit on my player prop. I told people take him over 2.5 or rode that one again. So I hit on there. He had 7 the week before. You were worried about some of the ball security issues with him that you saw in Houston, but right now he's looking better running the ball than Najee Harris. He's catching the ball out the backfield. He's a true weapon in the offense that Matt Canada can use, but not just rely on all the time. So I think it's interesting. Yeah, I like Jaylen Warren, and I'm really intrigued to see what this team does. You talked about Mike Tomlin. I trust Mike Tomlin as a coach. I definitely do, and I think a lot of people do. You heard Mark talk about it with good organizations, and the Steelers have proven that. We talked about Seattle. We've seen that with the Patriots for years, although we're questioning that now. When it comes time to make the tough decisions, can you make them? Can you make the adjustments? Good organizations are usually good at that too. So I'd be really shocked if the Steelers don't use this bye to reset, refocus, and re-attack in terms of their offense. But, Mike Tomlin's going to have to make a decision. If Matt Canada isn't getting it done, the loyalty stuff's got to go out the window. You got to get somebody in there that can get it done. And you talked about this, Ryan. You know this. You need competent coordinators that guys also believe in the locker room. I think we don't think about that enough. We just criticize the play calling on either side of the ball. But you know what? When it's not good and guys don't feel good about this, if you talk to athletes in the locker room, especially in football, you can lose the locker room with coordinators too, just like you can with players, just like you can with head coaches. They don't believe in these coordinators, and they're going into these meetings and they're sitting there like, man, what's this guy going to say? He's not going to. How's the team going to have any confidence when it comes to offense? And we'll see what the Steelers' confidence is going forward. But it's a big win for them in the division. Tough loss for the Ravens. Big win for the Steelers.
100%, man. I appreciate you just doing another week with us. And if you're watching this video, obviously there's going to be weekly with this one, but please like and subscribe our channel for all other NFL content. If you want more Jets and Giants talk, please go watch the Gangs All Here Jets podcast or the Blue Rush Giants podcast. Those guys do a great job over there. And Dex, man, another week down the books. Appreciate you as always.
Yeah, man, it's week 5. Can you believe it? It's
no,
going by so
I can't.
quickly. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.